listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast with your host, Andy Plimer. Bringing you up-to-date coaching concepts from the world of rugby. Sharing ideas to make the game better.
Welcome to episode 99 of the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I'm your host, Andy Plimer, and joining me today is Ian Baillie. Ian is the head coach of McGill University's men's rugby team, who compete in the RSEQ championship against teams from Quebec and Eastern Ontario in Canada. Ian has also had a major impact on club rugby around Montreal, heading up the Montreal Irish and before that the St Lambert Locks. He also coached the Quebec provincial senior men's side for a number of years. He's coached me. I've coached with him. I consider him a mentor, and I can't believe it's taken this long to get him on the pod. So welcome, Bales.
Hey, thanks, mate, man. Glad to be here. It's a privilege to be able to chat rugby. It's a pleasure to chat rugby with you at any point. Privilege to be on your podcast with you, man. Thanks.
Mate, awesome. I know, like, my excuse for not having you on earlier is I wanted to save episode 99 for you, being Canadian, and the great one, Wayne Gretzky, wore that number. So, let's go with 99.
Yeah, perfect. That's funny on that one too, because I remember you mentioned something about your ice hockey skills, and mine are much similar, mate. Not so good on the skates. And I got handed a 99 jersey to play against the students one year in the student teacher game in my high school, and that's just nonsense.
Didn't go well.
Not so well.
like a newborn giraffe would be my imagination.
There you are.
Cool. Well, let's get into it. What's your backstory on rugby? How'd you get into it, and how'd you progress as a player through that time?
Yeah, well, I was a lucky one in the town I grew up in Ontario. The junior high school that I began in grade 7 was a new school, and we were the first grouping in there. And it turned out the music teacher, Alistair Ward was his name, is an old fella who just was a rugby guy. He loved rugby, and he decided to try and get a rugby program going in this brand new school. And at the time, it was he was only able to run sevens, but he managed to do it through the years 7, 8, 9, and 10. Having a grade level group at each. And that kind of got me hooked on it right then and there. I played a heap of sports growing up. But at that time, it was a spring sport. And that was the one that I chose to run with, and had a great laugh with it. When I finished out at junior high and moved on to high school, there was the opportunity to play 15s, and that was my introduction to that in grade 11. So I played high school rugby for a couple of years, and then joined the local club. Shout out to the mighty Cambridge Pirates, Cambridge, Ontario. Yeah. And I ran with them for a few years until I went off to uni. I didn't start uni directly after high school. I worked for a couple of years and then moved off to the University of Guelph, where I played out during my time there, and then got hooked in with the Guelph Rugby Club at that point. And played a number of years there in the Niagara Rugby Union. And shortly after that time, the two clubs, the Fergus Club and the Guelph Club, sort of merged, looking at the talent that was about there. And that was a great move. That team ended up getting into the Marshall Senior A division, and that's Ontario's top division, playing against the top clubs in the province. By that time, I'd moved into more of a coaching role and was just running around playing a bit of third grade rugby with the club. Then I had a work opportunity to come to Montreal, and as you do, you meet up with a bunch of lads around a park one day and get hooked back into it. So that was me with the St Lambert Locks for a couple of years. And then, as fate would have it, I ended up at your alma mater. I moved over to Newcastle, moved to Australia there to do my teaching certificate, and ended up playing as an angry seahorse for a year while I did my degree.
The mighty seahorse. What year was that? I was so I played one season with them, and it would have been, oh my goodness, that was 94. I think.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you came after me, I think.
Yeah, well, after I was there in 2005.
Yeah.
And
That's
that was
crazy, eh?
fantastic. Yeah, it's just something in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it was obviously you knew John Jones here.
Yeah. Yep. The late great.
Here in Montreal. Yeah, well, that's
He was a
his.
Newey boy too.
Yeah, his place. In fact, turns out that while I was over there studying, he had gone home for a bit of time, and he literally rocked up to the park one day when we were playing, and just take a look across the way, and there he is. It was interesting, yeah.
Yeah, good man, good man.
Yeah.
Interesting that you started in sevens. Was that your only time in the faster form of the game? I'm saying yes.
So yeah, pretty well, my friend. I was when I was a kid, I was a late bloomer. So at 7, I was just a little toady kid there running about. Yeah. And even through grades 8, 9, and I don't think I really started growing at all until I got into grade 10, grade 11. So yeah, that was the 7s kind of suited me at that time too. But yeah, since then there's not been an awful lot of the 7s.
Cool. And after Newcastle Uni, what happened after that?
Yeah, well, that's when I came back here to to Montreal and was back in with the Locks for a small stint there, and that's when I got involved with Rugby Quebec, in terms of the senior men's program, and that was a fantastic opportunity. In terms of getting to work with some of the top guys the top players that we had here. And that, formulated a lot of what I ended up doing sort of later on in terms of learning to work with players and learning to get more, learning that you get more from players than, quite often you can give to them. So that was a really, really good experience. But as far as the playing days, at that point, I had sort of dwindled down to it. I was, my early 40s at that stage. And well, I've watched the likes of you run around at an older age than that. The body was saying that it was about time, to kind of back it off a wee bit as far as the playing goes.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, 40 was my last year of playing, and I was still sore on Thursday night, so that was kind of the body saying, "Hey, coaching is your full time, not your part time role."
Yeah, mate. But at 40, you were still playing first grade rugby here. I was running around in the thirds at that age.
Yeah, all good. And what like going back to those very first coaching experiences in Ontario? What did they look like? What kind of lessons do you get from that now that you'd be like, okay, I did some of these things well, but these things I'm glad I've moved on from that. Yeah,
well, in terms of coaching, I actually started doing a bit of coaching when I was younger, but in basketball, and that was through a teacher that I'd had when I was young, and his big deal was that sport had given him so much, you give back to the sport. And then he sort of pushed or preached that, it's never too early to start doing that. And so I began coaching early, and that's definitely something that I took on. Was it's an opportunity to give back, and an opportunity that I think kind of everybody should sort of take as they go. But in terms of what I learned or what I got early, I was a hard learner, and I think some others were too. You were going to do it my way, and that was the way it was going to be. I was entirely coach centered, no thought of being a player centered kind of a guy. And it took a wee while learning by listening to players a little bit more, and that adage of 2 ears, one mouth, and using the proportion sort of settled in. And I began to listen, and that definitely helped, because then I was able to sort of provide players with what they would need to do, sort of what they wanted to do. I mean, I kind of looked at it as though, I was coaching the team I wanted to have, not coaching the team that I do have. So I wasn't really listening to what I was getting from folks, and I know that I had to change that about, and that led me to understand the role flexibility comes in as a coach, being able to adapt to different people's needs and different people's goals, and definitely, as I said, listen to them in order to try and meet those a little bit and become a bit better at what it is that you're doing.
That's a really good point. That one where I fell into that trap as well, where I'm coaching a team, but I'm thinking about the next team that I want to coach, and I'm not being in the present moment with my current team, and that devalues everything that the players are putting into it. So yeah, I've definitely gone down that pathway, and it's so good when you just like rid yourself of that and just go, you know what, this is where I'm at. This is you know, I'm going to make this the thing, and then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. You know, there's the point you make about devaluing things. I mean, just think on that. Someone's kind of running something in order to meet some sort of fictitious thing they've got sort of going on in their head, and you're the actor in that play. I don't know that that's a very good situation to be in, especially as the leader of a group like that. So, yeah, I definitely had to get that fixed up and get that right. And yeah, I'll say slow. You know, you would hope you pick those things up really, really quickly, and you know, I definitely didn't. It took a bunch of time. I remember a few years in, someone, you know, an old mate or something like that, saying something to me about, you're just like so and so. We'll leave the name out of it, but it was a coach I'd had years and years and years ago who just did the same, stood there and screamed at you and made you run to death. You know, like. And that opens your eyes a wee bit to what you're doing, and maybe to think a little bit about what you want to do instead.
Well, that's a common theme that comes out in most of the interviews I've done, is that we coach often how we were coached. And you don't know what you don't know. But if you're introspective enough and you kind of can look yourself in the mirror and go, oof, yeah, you know what, this is not going well, and maybe I have to move things in a different direction, then you're going to progress.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Cool. And you know, after those, you know, years where it took you a little while, when was the time where you felt, you know what, I've kind of got a good idea on what my coaching philosophy is, and you know, these are the main things that I value as a coach. What were those kind of things, and you know, when was that period of time, do you feel?
Yeah, so I got the opportunity to work at the University of Guelph. I kind of came aboard as a forwards coach, and I guess it would be second year, and it was actually a countryman of yours, an Aussie boy. Gus was his name. He's a flanker, really good flanker, to come over and play with us. And
that's what we do. We make flankers, man.
Yeah, they get produced. And in terms of, I guess the overriding in my philosophy, this guy put it in my ear. You have to have fun. And this was what he was all about. He was all business when it needed to be business.
Yep.
But he ensured that we understood that this is a game and we play games for fun. And that was, he was one of the hardest workers going on the park. And that season actually was the first time Guelph had won provincial title since the early 70s, I believe. And, you know, a big part of that was on the fun, but obviously very competitive culture that we had developed. And so I knew that was definitely a piece that I needed to take forward. And what I was doing was that we need to ensure that the game remains a game, that it remains fun for everyone involved. So, a really big piece there.
Yeah, I love that theme. And that's something that, you know, probably the last 5 years, well, probably since starting this podcast, really, it's really been more of a focus for me, where it was kind of like, I'd say it, but was it really fun for the players? I don't know. But now it's, you know, having talked to a bunch of guests and realizing myself that, you know, that's such a key part of it. And, you know, the players are coming from all different, you know, work days to come to practice on a Tuesday and a Thursday. You want to make that the best 2 hours of their day, not the worst.
Yeah. And so again, as a couple of your other guests have said too, you know, there's your coaching ability and your progression is this is not a linear thing in one straight line gradient or anything like that. And I know I've fallen off where, you know, I'm now starting to feel the push of we're on the cusp here of getting something done. And, okay, so maybe we get off the fun part a little bit, we get onto the really serious nature of the goods. But I think in balance, it's really important to, well, obviously to know the principles that you're really holding, but to get back to them and getting back to the fun and ensuring that stays as, the cornerstone of what you're doing. And so everything you plan has to kind of around that to start. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's where I love like messing around with warm-ups and even cool downs. Is like I want that to be like, let's go back to elementary school and do phys ed games like that may or may not have a rugby ball in them involved in them, and just get loads of laughs and loads of stupid stuff going on and growing adults, carrying on like school children. And then once that's done, it's okay, we go to work now. And I've found that being a really effective way of getting those vibes.
Yeah, no question of that, man. Like one of 65. Well, this year things were a bit different with the uni group, but typically we're 65 or 70 guys, and it's hilarious watching 65, 70, 21, 19, 20, 21-year-olds running around playing hot dog tag. And I took that from you, actually, the hot dog tag, when you introduced that to me.
Which I stole that from my eldest daughter's phys ed teacher. I'd hit her up every day. What do you do in phys ed? Okay, all right, I'm gonna do that for the guys tonight. Yeah, hot dog tag's a winner.
Yeah.
Beauty. Yeah, well, you've been in club rugby. Well, you've been coaching not just club, but various levels for loads of time now. It'll be close on 2 decades now, and what we're not in it for the money. That's pretty clear. What keeps you staying involved and staying motivated and continuing to get better as a coach and those kind of things?
Yeah, there's a number, and everybody's got probably 2 or 3 that stick to them in terms of why. I'm in an enviable position, the way I look at it anyway. Maybe others don't. No children, a partner who still plays the sport and coaches the sport a bit too. So we keep each other very interested in it, obviously. But I have a real love of watching the game and a passion for the game, and I really like seeing kids and young people develop that. As a school teacher, you love to see that light bulb moment when something clicks and something that previously misunderstood or not understood now seems pretty straightforward, and you get those opportunities, in rugby, all kinds, just the same way. And that's to me, that's an awesome bit. You have a good segment in a rugby session. It's like hitting your driver straight 300 yards. It makes you want to come back, and you just love those types of things. At the uni level, we're developing young men, not just rugby players, and that's a big piece too. From an educator's perspective, we have things that we look at in terms of the values within our group. Obviously, on-field play is definitely one of them, but we have a couple of others too that are really critical or really important to us, and we get the opportunity to help kids or young men grow and develop that way. There's an opportunity of supporting someone to develop into the men that they want to become, and that's a real big deal. And you see the passion in young people when they play as well. And if you don't get caught up in passion that runs that deep and true in something, what does move you a bit, I guess. I love rocking up to the side and watching. I love being involved in the triumphs and obviously the challenges that come with it. And I'm one of those guys that while in it at the moment, adversity seems to push you back a little. I like the challenge of some adversity at times, I think, and maybe put a little too much on myself at times. But lots of reasons, mate. I'm sure there's so many you've heard over the time.
Yeah, and I think that one about helping athletes grow into adults is so important. Like, I just think of my own time, like as a university student, and there was some loose kind of times there where I'm envious of these guys, like who have coaches like you, where it's like, hey, you know, arm around the shoulder kind of thing. Do you think this is the right pathway that you want to be on? You know, as a 19-year-old man, like, is that what you want to be doing? And I think that's like, you know, and a lot of people will pay lip service to that kind of stuff as well, saying, "Oh yeah, we do that." But like, really, are you doing that? Are you holding kids to account to the words that they've said they're going to follow through with, or are you just going, you know, what? You know, like the on-field stuff is the priority, and you know, that's they do what they do kind of thing. I think that's critical.
Yeah, same. And I, again, you know, we've talked, and you and I individually about it previous times. What's kind of available out there now to help coaches, and as we'll laugh about, my technological skill is not what one would call highly advanced, but it's easy even for a muppet like myself to go and find all kinds of stuff and seek out people to speak with and help you know, make me better toward doing that. You know, talking the culture piece there a little bit, I got a whole bunch of really good stuff out of working with you on that, actually, Andy. And you know, props to you on that end of things. That's helped me to continue learning more to that effect, and making sure that the importance of that comes out in what we do too.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. All right, well, talk to us about McGill Rugby. What's a bit of a description of McGill University? It was one of the only two universities I knew when I moved to Canada. I knew UBC and I knew McGill. So it's obviously a university with a huge reputation internationally. What can you tell us about the rugby program?
Yeah, so it was a strong rugby program, you know, historically. You know, the first run around, they suggest, is 1872, back in the McGill-Harvard match. And, you know, that was actually commemorated with the DC match that just went off with the All Blacks and the US. And in fact, some organizers had kind of reached out to sort of Harvard and McGill, but with, you know, current world and border conditions, there wasn't going to be anything that could sort of get done to address that. But yeah, from you know, from a team and club perspective, the history is massive, and the legacy of wearing a jersey that's been, you know, passed on now for nearly 150 years is a pretty special thing to the guys. In terms of, you know, kind of what we're about now, the university rugby, if you look at women's university rugby, direct pathwaying up to national level, national representation. And we would like to have that as a similar sort of pathway for men. And, you know, all steps along the way see that as the same sort of thing. In order for that to happen, you know, we have to really push towards high performance environments, and a university is a perfect setting for that. The facilities are there. Where we are, we've, you know, an on-field tactical training group, that coaching group that's, you know, supplemented by strength and conditioning coach, nutritionists. We have people that can work on mental skills and lifestyle support. Obviously, we provide all of the academic support that, you know, that would go with a first-class educational institution. So if the ambition is to move forward in rugby and to push into that high-performance type of training environment, we are able to do so, and that's what we are currently trying to do. When I sort of first came around uni rugby, I mean, back when I played uni rugby, it was just a big fun, get out there and smash them up and you know, have a great laugh of it. And, you know, even
smash some beers after too.
Yeah, there's that bit all the time, of course. And then, you know, when I first started coaching at uni, you know, 30 years ago, or 25 years ago, I guess, the training that athletes were doing, the lifestyle that it was being lived, it wasn't near what it is now. And I think that the shift is a very, very positive one. Obviously, it's something that I certainly want to be involved in. And we're getting more and more a buy-in to thinking about playing some rugby beyond here, or working as hard as possible to see if an opportunity exists to do so. And if we can get more and more players sort of looking at things that way, and that's kind of the goal and the challenge, I think that we start to work toward a sort of a higher performance environment, which is what we would like to be. The top schools in the country are definitely right on that. And, we have goals to try to be there. So we're going to have behaviors that match it.
Yeah. And what, you talk about a high performance environment on the field. McGill is notoriously very difficult to get into as a university. So they've got high performance academic expectations as well. How do you marry those two together and prioritize times where, rugby's the area to focus on and academics is the area to focus on?
Well, and that's really, I guess, best terminology would be a growth and development area for us. I think we've managed it well. We manage it not as well. Our culture is player driven. We determine our values as our very first sort of set out, so that we can establish what we want to be about and determine an identity from the values we've set. And from moment one, myself and Matt are both school teachers, and so academic is priority number one. Yeah, priority number one. And while we do ensure that everybody knows that, and we support it in a number of different ways, at the uni, we do have to recognize, and we want to build in that rugby is a 1A then at that stage, how we're going to perform on the field and how we manage ourselves. And this goes back to the development of a whole player, whole person versus just player. Time management, organizational skill, prioritizing. These are all skills we've all got to learn. And so this is one of the things that we work on as a club, so that we don't end up at crosshairs with, academics and the rugby needs sort of conflicting with each other. It still happens. And, we take it case by case as things go. But that is definitely a challenge, Andy, as you noted. The GPA to enter in McGill is it's tough. It's not an easy entry to the school. And the lads that are coming here also recognize, and once you get here, you discover that the rigor for the academics is there. It does require you to grow in your ability to manage, both the sport and the academics. So it presents challenges to us, and we continue to work on and hopefully get better at it and with it each year. But it definitely presents challenges to us. Yeah.
All right, awesome. And this season you received the 2021 RSEQ Men's Coach of the Year award. How was the season, and what were some of the challenges that you faced?
We had a great season, and that's Coach of the Year. I believe in our conference, the Coach of the Year award is a recognition of what a team's accomplished and team's done. It's nice to get an award. I suppose it always is, and recognize. You trade 1,000 of them to win the cup, obviously. But it's definitely a recognition of team performance, and we're very, very proud of the guys. As people may have seen, we didn't show well in the grand final. A blip on an otherwise good year. We showed some real guts and character in the semifinal, and we'd lost our way and lost our shape for a wee while, and had to really dig deep to get the result there. But through the year, the boys rose to challenge after challenge, and there were just so many. I mean, we didn't know that we'd be playing rugby until the end of July, when McGill announced which sports would be on the calendar for the year.
Right.
We weren't able to get on field or meet together as a group until just near the end of August, which was 16 days prior to first kickoff. That clearly presented another big challenge to us. And then how we had to manage things on a day-to-day basis in terms of COVID protocol and, verifications of who could be where, when, and tracing and tracking. We lost, I didn't write down the numbers, put it together for our sort of end of season report, but the number of man practices we lost because someone may have been in contact with someone, or someone woke up with a bit of a headache or a cough, and it's an automatic no training permitted until asymptomatic 24 hours and a negative test. And I mean, those all created real challenges for us. on top of that, getting onto the field, we weren't permitted to, cross borders for any sort of preseason training or preseason work. So, running into the season, we're definitely behind the eight ball a wee bit. We knew ahead of time. We have an outstanding doctor. Shout out to the Montreal Irish, Dr. Mickey Morose, who used to play for the Irish back in, I think it might have been in maybe your day or just the beginning.
Yeah, no, I coached him. Yeah, he was a scrum half. Yeah,
right. So he's our team doctor. He's an outstanding sports med guy. So he, I worked with him about the real concerns that we were going to have of people not having played and not having done quite really much of anything for quite a period of time because they were not permitted to do a bunch of training. Guys weren't permitted into weight rooms and such around here. And so we jumped on World Rugby's Activate immediately and put guys into the Activate programming way back in the beginning of May. Because we really were concerned about soft tissue. And it came to pass. We had a couple of real tough soft tissue injuries through the year. So we lost a number of guys, but that's common to everyone. If you took a look at the RSEQ through the fall, the lineup from week to week on each of the teams was different. Managing guys' minutes, managing guys beat up and bang up. And with that part also comes, no high school rugby, no here in Quebec, no CJEP rugby, leading guys into a 2-year cohort of first-time players. Presented a bunch of skills challenges and a bunch of game sense challenges too. So all in all, a big season. At our meeting just the other day, we were talking about let's everybody pull out one goal that you had set from the beginning of the year, and how did we go? And I pulled out the one I had thrown in as just, it was truthful, but kind of kicking it a bit and saying, we don't want any COVID. Let's avoid the COVID. And we'd been able to actually do that.
Good.
The boys bought into doing what they needed to do and being really, really responsible. And I'm grateful as hell to them for all that, because you can only imagine what a challenge that's got to be as a 20-year-old kid going to uni.
All right, last thing on McGill. Moving forward, what's some of the big goals for McGill? And if you were to look forward to 5 years' time, where would you hope that the program would be?
I hope in 5 years' time. I mean, we definitely want to be a top program in the province, and we want to be competing at a national level tournament. We attended the national tournament when it was here in 2019, and we had an okay run. But in terms of the way things are currently sitting in Canadian University Rugby, there's an upper echelon, and I would suggest that we're not at that level, and we would like to work to get there and to achieve that. There are a number of things that we want to look towards doing to address that in the immediacy. One of the other challenges that we had this year was that the rosters were capped, and we were not permitted to keep the number of players that we would want it to. We were only allowed to play with one squad. We weren't allowed to have a development side or a second team. And McGill's traditionally had 2 or even 3 teams. So we've got to get back to that. So in the immediacy, we want to get back to those 35, 38 players that we had to say that they couldn't continue with us. It was Matt Garston, God love him. When we knew that this was going to be the case, we started looking at solutions, and we began hooking these guys up with Westmount Club because it's just right close to where we are and where a bunch of these boys live, so that we could get them into at least some 10s rugby to be able to play some rugby through the fall. And so that kept a bunch of them interested and hopefully invested in it.
Well, they won the division too, I believe.
They did. They ended up winning their title. So that was
awesome.
a real positive for them. Yeah. So we definitely want to be able to pull a bunch of those guys back. But going back to what you mentioned, academics and getting into McGill is a challenge. And in terms of recruiting and in terms of looking to bring players on board, we've got to be far, far, far better. And we've addressed that as a coaching group, as well as with our alumni, in order to be able to be better at that. There are things that we're going to need to be doing and things that we're going to be implementing. in order to try to attract and just, I guess, inform players about sort of what our programming is about and what it is that we're looking to achieve, and try to get some of those academic kind of elite guys coming our way as their first choice. We also want to continue to really work with our alumni. One of the big deals that we've really started upon in the last 4 or 5 years is our alumni engagement. These guys create tons of buzz for our group, but really tons of connection and opportunity too, both on and off the field. Most recently, Alex Russell getting named to Canada's Sevens and getting capped there for the first time round. It's fantastic to see. Then from an off-field end of things too, being able to get into some mentorship stuff with some of our more senior alumni in and out of the game is a very, very important thing for our group and our programming too.
Cool. That sounds exciting. All right. You mentioned in there a bit of club rugby around Montreal. You've been active locally for a long time. What's a bit of a summary of the work you've done, and how would you like to see men's rugby progress, local level here in Quebec and on that premiership club level?
Yeah, well, so I started when I got back here from Newcastle. I started coaching at the club level, and then, as I said, had the opportunity to coach the provincial senior men's side, which was a great experience and just showed me that there is a heap of talent here in Quebec, and the shifts back and forth between Ontario being in Eastern Ontario being in the Quebec League or not. I think, we really want that to continue to happen. At least I think it needs to continue to happen to make things more competitive. But in terms of the work here in Quebec, I think that there is an issue with not the club system per se, but I do believe that for the number of players we have too many clubs.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that in order for players to develop, there has to be competitive opportunity, as much competitive opportunity as possible. And when the talent is diluted by such a significant number of clubs, it can't progress the way that you would sort of want it to. When you look at the representation at next level, Quebec women are so well represented at the national level. And you look at the club structure for the women, there are 3-4 very, very competitive sides that have very, very captive groups, and they attract the best and the best play at those clubs, and that makes them better players. They're playing better fixtures each week, and that makes them better players. That's something that we definitely need to address here. We've got a number of really strong minis and youth groups, but we absolutely need to get some sort of carryover from that into senior men's and the club systems as well. And, I think getting ourselves a little bit better vested into high schools. I mean, at my high school program, we have challenges consistently. And then you look at a high school program like the one you ran for quite some time, where, you didn't really have much in the way of competition to play against. And I think that we need to be, as as a union, we need to be more invested in that. And I know that there's heaps of efforts by the same few people continues on, but I think we need to be a whole bunch better at that in order to evolve our game and to make our game better. I liked the RCSL back in the day, Rugby Canada Super League, which was all across the country.
It's a beautiful thing.
It provided for opportunities to play, but six perhaps opportunities to play, and that's a tough one, right? Yeah. But I like that opportunity was there. Same with when you boys had the Voyageur program, the U19 program, developing young guys to be able to move on to next level type of stuff. Fantastic, fantastic initiatives, fantastic environment.
5 or 6 games though, and it's done.
That's it. Yeah. And that's a challenge. It's in a good part of our country, unfortunately.
I think just going back a little bit, I'm like with my kids, the age they're at that minis age, and there's like the base of the pyramid it's pretty strong, right? Like there is a big buy-in for minis rugby from, you know, my youngest, he's 5, he plays with the U8s, and my oldest is 11, and there is a desire there for that, and the numbers reflect it. And like you say, it's that leap from that age group into the high school realm, and then from, you know, this is a worldwide problem. How do you get high school kids playing for club rugby? So that's a major issue. That middle part of the pyramid is not stable and definitely not sustainable.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, my high school is, and it fluctuates anywhere between, say, 800 and 1,000 kids. You know, we had 2 years running where we had over 100 kids playing rugby, but then literally followed a year or two after that with scrambling to have one senior boys team of, you know, 20 boys. It's a challenge. But where
I was on the other end of the spectrum, where I'd ask kids in grade 10 and 11 how many years of rugby you played, and, you know, 5 or 6 of them had already played 10 years of rugby because they'd just been playing minis with their mums and dads, like, who'd played rugby all their life too. And that's a big part.
It is, and it's as I say, it's a challenge. I mean, if you can, half of my struggle in my my day job is to figure out how to motivate a teenager to get on to things. And so, you know, if anybody's got that secret somewhere in their book, let us all know, and we can get them hooked into the game.
Especially with math. I love it.
yeah, clearly. Says the science guy.
Yeah. All right, then part of your role when you were heading up the Quebec senior rugby team was you got to go on a tour with the Canadian national team to Argentina, and the days when Kieran Crowley was leading it. And you know, shout out to Kieran. He's an excellent man, and you know, definitely missed here in the Canadian landscape at a senior men's level, in my opinion. What was that experience like? When was that? That was like 2012 or
2010.
Oh, okay, right.
It was so the CRC was in place at that point. They they went from the Rugby Canada Super League to the CRC league,
the now defunct CRC.
Yeah, correct. With senior men and the U19s as well. And the CRC, from that competition, they selected players that they wanted to take a look at for the upcoming World Cup in 2011, and they were going to play in the America Rugby's Cup. And so that was being hosted in Argentina, and it was an Argentina squad, a U.S. development squad, the Canadian selects or development squad, the ARC team, and Toma. And so I had the opportunity, I think 2 years perhaps prior to that, Rugby Canada Institute, what I thought was just a great idea. And it was like a coach shadow program, and it gave younger, well, I wasn't so young, but coaches an opportunity to work with top end people and tour with them. Francois Ratier, the executive director here in Montreal, who was one of your podcast guests previously, he had the opportunity to do that as well over in, I believe, the UK. I had the opportunity to go down to Argentina with that team, and it was an excellent experience. Again, I was beginning to work out the idea of team culture and get team culture right, or get team culture as a forefront thing. And I really saw the implications that could have and what that can do in a group. And that's a group of guys really just being pulled together to get down. Yeah. There were a couple of mainstays from the Canadian national team at that time, but the majority of the guys were looking to get a spot into the World Cup squad for the following year. And watching Kieran and Mike and those guys work with this team was a great experience. It wasn't literally just come tag along and have a look. You were immersed. You were asked, okay, so we'd like you to do a session here. What would you like to focus on? And then it became, okay, we'd like you to focus on this and the next one and have a go with that. And that was fantastic, because then there was immediate feedback from guys that I knew and had tons of respect for and had tons of time to listen to. So it was quite something.
Awesome. Brings me nicely to my final question before the final four questions. You've been around Canadian rugby for a long time now. It's no secret that the game's not going well at a senior level for the men's 15s. If you had a magic wand, what would be your top 5 areas you'd focus on in order to make not just an immediate impact, but a long-term impact as well?
Yeah, it's
no pressure.
To get the ship turned and steered. First of all, what's that? You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. Just surround yourself with them, right?
Yeah.
So
it's just you and me, though. That's a problem.
Let's go find a couple of smarter books. If I had a magic wand, I'd love to be able to, get our top 100 athletes and give them far more competitive opportunities to play rugby. If there was an opportunity or an ability to be able to do that, we need to get guys playing more meaningful fixtures. As we spoke about earlier, at the representative levels, in their formative years, we had boys playing 6 or 7 top-notch fixtures in their year, and you're not going to compete with nations doing that. I think that the Toronto Arrows is outstanding. I think that this is just a really good thing for rugby in Canada. I believe it to be. Not so much just as a pathway into the national program, although obviously it can be, but having a professional league where guys get to work and train in a truly, truly competitive environment, and then play a 20-plus game season and play like a professional and work like a professional. That's why the other nations are that far ahead, is because their players have those opportunity. I believe that coach development has to be there too. It can't just be about the players and giving them opportunities. Coaching opportunities like the one I had that many years ago.
100%.
And now, you've opened my eyes to a whole bunch of different things. Like you've given me a few different resources whenever I ask. We'll go and take a look at this, go take a look at that, because your finger's on the button. I think more people need to know about people like yourselves and others who do have fingers on buttons and can point them to resources, because there's tons of that out there. And literally, I don't know too many guys who do what we do, or people who do what we do that don't like to read, and you just pick something up and read it, and you're going to learn heaps from it. Watch a bit on it on the YouTube or something like that, same sort of thing. So I think magic wand wise, let's get everybody up to speed on what resources are available and work to develop that. And then I think lastly, I don't want to call them fiefdoms, but we have kind of different ways of going about how we're going to do things in the different unions or in the different provinces or regions. And I think if we had a real, you talked about a pyramid before, if there was a real way on how we're treating, minis into high schools or into, schoolboy clubs, if you want to call it that, and then working our way up towards opportunities to play these competitive fixtures that I was talking about, I think that would absolutely set us off in the right direction. I know that, you use the term magic wand, so I'm kind of talking quite truly a bunch of magic dust happening here, because none of these things are easy to do. At the end of the day, to be better, you've got to play better. You've got to play more consistently, more frequently, more often, train in a better environment. And that all comes down to having the opportunities to do it. And just at this stage, how do we get them? Where do we make them? Funding obviously is a big piece of that. Maybe with that magic wand, you give us a big bag of money that we're able to just have the unlimited pockets to be able to, pull these guys off and pull these players off, I should say, and these coaches off and give them that chance.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, the money and the size of the country, but that's always been the excuse, right? And then you look at a country like Namibia, And it's like, well, hang on. I think we're better placed in those terms than Namibia, but Namibia's bloody good. And sure, like, right next door to South Africa, and, a lot of their players will play in South Africa or over in Europe, but they've created a model that works for Namibia, and I don't think we have a model that works for Canada. I think we're using a model that works for, I don't know, maybe New Zealand, maybe England, maybe whatever. But I don't think we've truly found a Canadian model that can really, maximize the talent we have, but also the limits we have in terms of resources. And
I was just going to say, in you saying that, it makes me think, 100%. I mean, 10 years ago, where was Chile?
Yeah,
right?
Or Argentina 15 years ago. Perfect examples.
Yeah, that's a very good point in terms of the model that works or fits to what your circumstance or what you are. I mean, we do that in our personal lives and, in other aspects of our lives. And I never really considered it in those terms, but I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say, just get my rant on about coach development. It took me longer to get my level 3 than it did to get my university degree. And that speaks to a major problem in terms of developing coaches and getting just even a simple level 1. It's very difficult, and that just needs to be a major priority moving forward. That we have to get coaches qualified and skilled and contemporary to move the game forward.
Yeah, I agree. When I had a stint there as, a school teacher and educator, interested obviously in education. And so I did my work to become a coach educator. And I worked as a coach educator for rugby for a while. But what ended up happening was I wasn't progressing. I wasn't becoming better at it simply because there were limited opportunities to do the work, unfortunately. And, that's something that you got to kind of work through, I suppose. But to your point, I think we need to get that structured a good bit better in order to be able to hopefully entice other people and more people to both into the roles of educator and into the role of coaching and getting their coaching accreditation and learning. I think you used the term the science of coaching, and I couldn't agree that there's the science behind all the coaching we do is just going to help everyone.
All right, mate. Well, we always end the show with the same final 4 questions. When you first got hooked on rugby, question 1: who was the first player that really got you interested in the game and that you're a fan of?
There were a few. For me, it was a wee bit later. When I was a young kid, through my early years, it was watching the hockey and watching soccer.
Give me a hockey player then.
Not as much.
Give me someone. Knuckles Nyland. Knuckles Nyland would have been up there, surely.
Love him in here. Yeah, sure. Tiger Williams and that bunch. Wayne Cashman, all the brawly types. On the field, there were a few from when I really started paying attention. Zinzambrook was. To me, that was one of my favorite players. Talk about all skills for all players. One of your boys, Campo. I used to love watching Campese and Campese and John Kerwin having goes at one another, and which was going to be the better of the two. I listen to Kerwin now quite a bit on. I forget what the show he's got, and he's an interesting guy like that. And
they both
Julie,
are.
Really had a thing. Al Sharon, I thought he was just class as a guy. Good Canadian kid, just the hardest working man going.
Great bloke as well.
Lunchbox guy, and man, just he was something to watch. And you got to watch him obviously when he's young, that age. But something.
He spoke at one of the Montreal Irish old boys events. Yeah, just like super chill guy, super humble, and shaking his hand is like shaking someone with a baseball mitt. It's just like gigantic and and just like the fact that he got named in a World 15 at a World Cup, that is sensational for a Canadian back rower too, a back rower to get named in a national, like an international 15.
Side. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Top class.
Yeah, awesome. And what about now? Who are some of the players you like watching run around?
Just from, being in the coaching end of things, I love to look at the leadership bit. Now, Alan Wynne Jones is just something to me.
Yeah.
I was gutted to see him hurt again, but Jesus, he's been something. Dan Carter was another one who's always stood out to me as perhaps one of the best ever. Now just watching young guys go, and he's not as young, but the third one that stands out to me, even though I shouldn't say I've never been, I'm an off and on with South Africa. Sometimes I love the way they're playing and what they're doing. Other times I'm so, good God.
Agreed.
But Faf de Klerk. Oh, good God, man.
Yeah.
Talk about showing the world that this sport is for everyone. He's a phenom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I love watching him play.
Yeah, and I'd throw Antoine Dupont into that as well. That same thing, kind of, he's like, 5'6", and just as strong as an ox, and all the skills, and an absolute game changer when it's required.
Yeah, the vision and the ability to make decisions quickly.
And the beauty of the French is too, they don't do 60-minute videos about referees doing poor decisions and putting them on YouTube. So I'll take the punt on that one.
Not to knock anyone on that at all, yeah.
Awesome. All right. And what about high profile coaches? Who are some coaches you like what they're doing?
Well, I remember initially looking at, as a forwards coach, I started looking and listening to pretty much every word Mike Cron had to say. And I thought that there was tons to learn out of him, obviously. And I still check into videos all the time about technical aspects and things that we want to be doing. I really like a lot of what I saw with Michael Chaka as well. I thought that, no surprise that, he ended up now down in Argentina to go forward. But those are guys that you can take heaps from. And I think that I think that anyone that is willing to sit and have a chat with you, and you put that to me one time about these rugby guys, it doesn't matter who they are, the profile that they are. If you want to talk rugby, they're willing to talk rugby. And I think that just goes to speak volumes to things. So, like, man, I've talked more rugby with you than most and all. And, man, I would put you in that category as a guy that you're a go-to guy that's going to help people along constantly of your own time and on your own dime. And I think that needs to be recognized too.
Appreciate that, mate. Thank you. I probably belong in this last question, though. Who's someone in the grassroots you like what you're doing? But thanks for putting me in the high-profile group. I'll take it, mate. Last question? Who's someone in the grassroots community that you feel deserves a shout-out for the work they're doing?
Yeah, there are a couple. You've already mentioned his name, and I guess it's a mate of mine as well. So but Hugh Robertson, the minis work that he's doing here in my local community. I literally have 2 high school teachers at the school I work at come chat to me about this. I think he might be Welsh, referring to Hugh, because they've got their little kids involved in the run around up there.
That's awesome.
And it's just been great. And I got to watch him play once. And this year, his demeanor with him and the way he works with him is spectacular. And it's that kind of thing that's going to create experiences that'll hopefully have these kids stick around. That's a crazy little group of players too. They all live within like 100 meters, 200 meters of each other. They all play in the back alley of Verdun, and they're tight as can be. And I want to see that group in 10 years' time. That's going to be insane. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And another name I need to mention is Alan Spitzer. I don't know Alan personally very well at all. I know him, but I know what he's doing, and that's the NDG Dragons program. Yep. That's him sort of leading up that group there. And again, he's getting tons and tons of kids, and it's all based on, a heap of hard work and never stop knocking on doors type of thing, and providing opportunities for them. So it's great to see. It's great to see that happen in that community as well.
It's a good way to finish. I've actually got one of Alan's rugby balls in the boot of my car. My 5-year-old son stole it last week at a rugby game, and promise I'll get it back to you, Alan.
Yeah. Apples and trees, made apples and trees.
Yeah. Cool. All right, mate. It's been awesome having you on for episode 99. I've got a pretty massive guest for episode 100, but I don't know. He or she, we'll leave it a mystery. They're gonna have to do well to follow you, mate. Really enjoyed having the chat. Great to catch up and talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks very much, mate.
No worries. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review via iTunes and keep listening for the next episode. You can also follow us via Twitter at RugbyCoachesCNR or via the website therugbycoachescorner.com. Until next time, keep sharing ideas to make the game better.